new system, the most important thing to understand first is simply how to affect change. In most TTRPGs, that means dice. In the case of Veil of the Void, those are d6s, or the six-sided die. Veil of the Void uses exclusively d6s, with a 1 out of 3 success rate augmented with a plus pip system, bonus dice, and situational auto-hit and auto-miss dice. This all works into a system that provides players and GMs with plentiful opportunities for narrative complications, exciting successes, and everything in between. When rolling the d6, 1s and 2s are failures, 3s and 4s are neutral, and 5s and 6s are successes. Most rolls in the game, besides damage rolls and a few contested checks, use a virtue, or main character attribute, as its base. Most rolls are a combination of a skill, its corresponding virtue, and any situational modifiers. A dice pool is the total number of dice you roll when resolving a check, made up of your base virtue dice, plus any additional dice you get from traits, abilities, skills, and so on. Start with the number of d6s equal to the virtue being used. This is listed at the end of each skill on the character sheet. For some skills, you may notice there are multiple virtues listed. This is because in Veil of the Void, many skills can be used and interpreted in a number of different ways depending on the situation and how they're being used. The dice pool is then affected by a number of skill points, or SP, you have available in a particular skill. This is also easily referenced on the character sheet, above the skills section. Note that the number of skill points in a given skill does not directly add to the dice pool. Instead, each skill point level unlocks new ways of manipulating the dice pool and its subsequent roll. Certain species traits, class, abilities, expertise, gear, and so on, may add additional pips, bonus dice, or auto dice, as listed in their entry. Some situations may reduce the number of bonus dice you add to your pool. Bonus dice, however, are separate from your base dice, based on your virtue. Because bonus dice are separate from your virtue dice, you'll always have at least as many dice as you have points in the corresponding virtue. Finally, the GM may award situational modifiers, usually in the form of auto-hit or auto-miss dice. These dice, however, are not rolled with the other dice, instead, set them aside either on a 6 or a 1, respectively. Remember, a dice pool can never have more than 4 bonus dice, 2 auto-hit dice, or 5 auto-miss dice. It's unlikely that you'll hit this maximum dice pool when just beginning the game, though. The skill section of the character sheet includes a space to mark bonus dice and auto-hit dice. This is a great place to record static bonuses, however certain traits, abilities, expertise, gear may add situational modifiers as stated above. It could be useful to use an index card, sticky note, or even a spreadsheet as a reference. As with any system, you'll tend to memorize your various abilities and bonuses through natural play. Resolving checks. Every roll in Veil of the Void is based on a skill, including combat rolls, which we'll cover in a different video. There are 3 basic types of rolls: difficulty checks, group checks, and contested checks. Difficulty checks are measured by the number of successes or hits needed to succeed. For GMs, most difficulty checks listed in abilities denote the difficulty value for that particular check. There is also a guide on page 14, which lists the difficulty values and a narrative interpretation of how those values might be to the average person. For example, a task that should be easy for the average person to succeed would require 2 hits, but a task that would be challenging for the average person would require 6. Of course, as players gain levels and abilities, they'll quickly surpass the capabilities of the average person. Some checks do not have a flat value needed to succeed. Instead, they're contested checks. The player must roll and compare their results with the result from the GM. If a player rolls more successes than the GM, the player succeeds. If the roll should tie, re-roll until there's a winner. When a challenge is presented to more than one character, the GM may call for a group check. All players participating in the group check roll their dice pools, adding their successes together and subtracting 1 success for each value rolled. If one or more players would like to assist in the check but don't feel like they contribute enough dice to likely succeed, they may instead assist by granting the player rolling the check an auto-hit die. Only up to 2 characters can assist in this way, however. When rolling a check, determine how many auto-hit and auto-miss dice you have accrued, and set those aside on the appropriate facing, 6 or 1 respectively. Remember that you cannot have more than 2 auto-hit dice and no more than 5 auto-miss dice. For an auto-hit to be counted, you must roll at least 1 natural success. Auto-hit and auto-miss dice can count towards criticals though, which will be discussed later. And now we roll. Pips are the official term for the number of dots on each face of a dice. Certain skill point tiers, as well as some traits, abilities, and gear, grant a number of pips to spread out among your dice roll. No matter how many pips you may have available to spend, you may only apply them to up to 2 die, or 3 if rolling a dice pool of 13 or more. Again, this is unlikely until higher levels. You cannot add pips to any die which rolled a natural 1. Beyond any pips granted by skill points, traits, abilities, expertise, or gear, characters may also have a pool of determination to spend to further affect the results of a die roll. Determination is equal to the character's level, plus 1/2 their judgment virtue. Remember, determination is a renewable resource, and it renews as to GM discretion. I would advise being fairly liberal with your use of determination. It rewards players for creative thinking and going above and beyond what their characters may normally feel comfortable with, and it's a good way to reward good role-playing and analytical thinking, let's say. The player may elect to use their determination to re-roll a check. If you rolled any 6s, you may keep 1 of them. Likewise, if you rolled any 1s, you must keep 1 of them. You then roll any remaining dice in your dice pool. If you rolled a critical failure, 5 or more 1s and 2s, you must keep 2 if able. If you rolled a critical success, 5 or more 5s and 6s, and are forced to re-roll, you may keep up to 2 6s if able. With the check rolled, pips added, auto dice counted, and determination possibly spent, all that is left to do is read the results. As above, for difficulty checks, you must score hits equal to or above the difficulty value, or for contested checks, you simply have to have more successes than the opponent. Critical successes and critical failures are determined by the total number of successes and failures, not just 1s or 6s. If you roll 5 or more misses, 1s and 2s, it's a critical failure. However, if you manage to succeed the check while doing so, that's known as an advantageous failure. If you roll 5 or more successes, 5s and 6s, that is a critical success. But if you still fail to meet the difficulty value, that's known as an unfortunate success. This creates a spectrum of criticals, which can lead to really bad failures, incredible successes, and everything in between. A critical failure is a dramatic and dangerous result, often putting the PCs in a very difficult position. Advantageous failures still fail to accomplish the goal of the task, but may provide some advantage to the players, perhaps diminishing the danger therein, or providing another avenue to attempt to resolve the current situation. A critical success exceeds the intended goal of the check, providing some additional boon to the PCs. An unfortunate success, however, still succeeds in the intended task, but with some sort of complication that may arise, shifting the success into a new but likely less perilous tension. That's it. Those are the core mechanics of the Veil of the Void. While there are certainly more nuanced rules to consider, you should now know the basics you need to play in or run your very first game. All other rules and abilities will hang off of these core mechanics, which you will learn naturally as you play. So have at it. Grab a character sheet in your rulebook, and imagine what wonders you may get up to past the Veil of the Void.